My parents cast me out of Christmas celebrations for years, showering all their affection on my brother. So when he showed up for a crucial job interview, his face turned ghost white when human resources revealed that I was the company's CEO. My name is Evelyn Reed, and I am 32 years old. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Innovatech Dynamics, a technology startup I nurtured from a simple idea into a thriving mid-sized corporation employing over 200 people. But my journey to this point wasn't exactly supported by a loving family. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Growing up in Pittsburgh, I was perpetually the outsider in my own home. My parents, Richard and Helen, made it painfully clear that my younger brother, Liam, was their golden child. Liam, who is 3 years my junior, was given everything. He received the latest gadgets, the most promising opportunities, and most significantly, their undivided admiration and attention. From a very early age, I learned the hard lesson of self-reliance. My parents were fixtures at all of Liam's baseball games and school plays, yet they were conspicuously absent from my academic decathlons and piano recitals. The phrase "we are busy with one of Liam's events" became the monotonous soundtrack of my childhood. The disparity became even more stark when it was time to consider college. We have been putting money aside for Liam's education since the day he was born, my father declared when I cautiously broached the topic of financial aid. He is destined to become a doctor or perhaps a lawyer. Evelyn, you have always been the independent one. I graduated with honors in computer science and business administration, a feat I managed by juggling 3 part-time jobs while carrying a full course load at a state university. In the meantime, Liam partied his way through his freshman year at a prestigious and costly private college, promptly dropped out, and then convinced our parents to finance a gap year, which mysteriously stretched into 3 years of finding himself while backpacking through Europe and Asia on their dime. After graduating, I secured an entry-level role at a small tech company. The salary was minimal, but the experience it provided was priceless. I resided in a cramped studio apartment, consistently worked 60-hour weeks, and devoted every spare moment to honing my skills and developing personal side projects. While Liam was busy posting pictures from exotic beaches, I was hunched over my keyboard, coding until 3 in the morning, driven by a relentless desire to build something of substance. My major breakthrough occurred 5 years ago. I conceptualized a groundbreaking customer relationship management system powered by artificial intelligence. I pitched the idea to a seemingly endless parade of investors, facing one rejection after another, but I eventually secured enough seed funding to launch Innovatech Dynamics. The initial 2 years were an absolute grind. I worked around the clock, pouring every ounce of my energy and every dollar I had into ensuring the company's survival and success. By our 3rd year, our software began to gain significant traction in the market. Major corporations started to adopt our platform, revenue started to flow in, and we expanded our operations, moving into a proper office building. I finally started to pay myself a respectable salary. There were moments when I feared we wouldn't survive, when funding was perilously low and the product was not quite perfect, but I refused to give up. This year, Innovatech Dynamics solidified its position as a major force in the technology sector, with a valuation exceeding $250 million. Throughout this entire arduous journey, my communication with my family had diminished to infrequent holiday phone calls. My parents never once inquired about my company, and on the rare occasions I attempted to share my successes, they would deftly change the topic to Liam's latest venture, which, more often than not, had already failed by the time they mentioned it. Liam eventually made his way back to the United States, and thanks to our parents' connections, managed to land a job at a marketing agency. He put in the bare minimum effort, but was somehow always the subject of our parents' praise. Liam is truly making his mark in the corporate world, my mother would proudly announce, completely disregarding the reality that I was at the helm of my own incredibly successful business. In December, just 3 weeks before Christmas, the situation reached a boiling point. I was in my corner office, which offered a panoramic view of the Seattle skyline, reviewing our year-end financial reports when my phone buzzed. It was my mother, a rare event for a Tuesday afternoon. "Evelyn, dear," she cooed in that overly saccharine tone she reserved for when she needed something. "I am calling about Christmas this year. In recent years, the most I had received was a last-minute text message invitation, usually just a few days prior, but a direct phone call 3 weeks in advance was completely unprecedented. We are having the entire family over on Christmas Eve," she went on. "It would be just wonderful if you could make it." A flicker of warmth spread through my chest. Despite all the history, a small part of me still yearned for my family's approval. Perhaps, I thought, things were finally starting to change. "That sounds lovely, Mom," I replied, trying to suppress the note of hope in my voice. "I think I can be there." "Wonderful," she gushed. "Oh, and Liam is bringing his new girlfriend, Victoria Sterling. She works at Sterling and Associates, that very famous consulting firm. Her father is a senior partner there. And there it was, the true motivation for the call. She is absolutely brilliant," my mother continued, completely oblivious to my stunned silence. "A graduate of Harvard Business School. She's on the fast track to becoming a junior partner." Liam met her at a high-profile charity gala. "Everyone is just so impressed with her. Your father tells anyone who will listen that his son is dating a Harvard graduate. Can you imagine the Reed family is finally moving up in the world?" I took a steadying breath. "Mom, did I happen to mention that Innovatech was featured in Forbes last month? We're finalizing our plans to expand into the European market next year." "Oh, that is nice, dear," she said dismissively. "Anyway, Victoria comes from an excellent family. Her mother is on the board of the symphony orchestra, and they own a summer home in the Hamptons. Liam says they might go there for New Year's." Isn't it all just so exciting? I bit my tongue to keep from saying something I would regret. "Very exciting. Listen, Mom, I have to get back to work. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. Of course, dear, we will see you on Christmas. Wear something nice, won't you? None of those severe business suits. Victoria is incredibly fashionable." After I ended the call, I stared at my phone for a long time. My mother's behavior should not have been a surprise, but the sting of it was still sharp. I forced myself to shake it off and return to my work, determined not to dwell on the impending holiday. A week before Christmas, I was in the middle of finalizing my travel arrangements when my phone rang again. This time it was my father. He almost never called me, so I answered immediately, a sense of alarm rising within me. "Evelyn," he said, his voice gruff and devoid of any greeting. "Dad, is everything okay? I am calling about Christmas," he stated flatly. Your mother and I have been discussing it, and we believe it might be for the best if you did not come this year. I sat there in stunned silence, my hand gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Liam's girlfriend comes from a very prominent family, he continued, his tone firm. We do not want anything to complicate matters. Complicate matters? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. What is that supposed to mean? You know what I mean, Evelyn. Victoria is wealthy and accomplished. Her family has influential connections. We need to present our family as respectable. And I am not respectable. The words were sharper than I had intended. Do not twist my words, he barked. Your brother has a chance at a real future here. The last thing we need is you bringing your alternative lifestyle into the mix. My alternative lifestyle? I was utterly baffled. Dad, I am the CEO of a technology company. What on earth are you talking about? All that independent woman nonsense, the obsession with your career, the way you always have to one-up your brother with your so-called success. So-called success. The phrase hit me like a physical blow. You have always been difficult, Evelyn, he said when I failed to respond. You have always insisted on doing things your own way, with no regard for how it impacts the rest of the family. For once in your life, can you think about someone other than yourself? Think about your brother's future. I sat there, the phone pressed hard against my ear, as my father systematically dismantled any lingering hope I had about my place in the family. I was not being uninvited from Christmas because of something I had done wrong. I was being banned because of who I was, accomplished, independent, and unwilling to pretend to be anything less. I understand, I finally managed to say, my voice steady despite the tears welling in my eyes. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. Good, he said, clearly relieved that I had not put up a fight. Your mother will call you sometime after the holidays. After hanging up, I remained motionless at my desk, staring out at the Seattle skyline as the winter sun set, casting long, dark shadows over the city. I had built this company, this career, this life, entirely on my own without a shred of their help or support. And yet, it still was not enough to earn me a seat at their Christmas dinner table. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to cry over my family's rejection. Deep, gut-wrenching sobs that left me breathless. I cried for the little girl who was never good enough. The teenager who had worked herself to the point of exhaustion in a futile attempt to earn an approval that was never going to come. And the woman who, despite everything, still foolishly craved her parents' love. When the tears finally subsided, I washed my face, squared my shoulders, and went back to my work. If I was not welcome at my parents' home for Christmas, then I would simply have to create my own celebration. It was my first Christmas spent completely alone, and the silence in my apartment was deafening. From my penthouse apartment in Seattle, I could see the Space Needle adorned with festive lights. I had decorated a small tree with a handful of ornaments. My executive assistant, Chloe, sent me a text message that read, "Merry Christmas, Evelyn. Just a reminder, my mom's legendary eggnog is waiting for you if you decide you do not want to be alone." Chloe had been appalled when I told her I was planning to spend Christmas by myself and had immediately extended an invitation, which I had politely declined, not wanting to impose. Before I could reply, another message appeared, this time from Olivia, my best friend since college. "Merry Christmas, Evie. Mark and the kids keep asking when Auntie Evelyn is getting here. The roast is in the oven, and there is a glass of wine with your name on it." Please do not tell me you are spending the day alone in that sterile apartment of yours. I smiled in spite of myself. Olivia knew me far too well. We had met during freshman orientation and had been inseparable ever since. She had been a first-hand witness to my struggles with my family and had welcomed me into her own family without a moment's hesitation. I stared at my phone for a long time before I made a decision. I sent a text back to Olivia, "Give me an hour. I will bring dessert." I quickly showered and changed, then drove to the only bakery I could find open and picked up a chocolate cake. As I pulled into Olivia's suburban driveway, the front door flew open and her 7-year-old twins, Sophie and Noah, rushed out to greet me, still in their Christmas pajamas. "Auntie Evelyn, you came," Sophie squealed. "We did not think you were coming," Noah added, grabbing the cake box from my hands. "Mom said you had to work." "I finished early," I lied, following them inside. Olivia's home was the complete antithesis of my minimalist apartment. Every available surface was decorated with Christmas cheer. The air was filled with the scents of cinnamon and roasting meat, and Christmas carols played softly in the background. Olivia emerged from the kitchen. "You came," she said, her voice filled with relief as she pulled me into a tight hug. "I am so glad." Her husband, Mark, appeared behind her, holding their 2-year-old daughter, Mia, on his hip. "It is about time you showed up, Evelyn." Olivia has been checking her phone every 5 minutes. I was immediately enveloped in the warmth and chaos of Olivia's family. We ate a wonderful meal, opened gifts. Olivia always had presents for me, played board games with the children, and simply talked and laughed by the fireplace. Not once did anyone ask about my work or my accomplishments or compare me to anyone else. I was just Evelyn, a cherished and welcome part of their celebration. As the evening wound down, I helped Olivia clean up in the kitchen. "Thank you for today," I said quietly. I needed this more than I knew. Olivia squeezed my shoulder. "We are your family, Evie. You will always have a place here." Family. The word was both a comfort and a wound. When I got back to my apartment late that night, there was a new message on my phone from Liam. It was a picture from my parents' Christmas celebration. There they were, my parents, Liam, and a stunning woman who I assumed was Victoria, all beaming in front of the same Christmas tree I remembered from my childhood, decorated with the same familiar ornaments and the same star on top. The text read, "Merry Christmas. Wish you could have been here, but Victoria's family came over too, and it was a full house. Maybe next year." My childhood home had 5 bedrooms and a spacious living and dining area. It was never about a lack of space. I stared at the photo for a long time, noticing the pride on my father's face as he put his arm around Liam, and the adoring way my mother was looking at Victoria. They were the picture-perfect family, and there was simply no place for me in that frame. In that moment, something inside me shifted. A door that I had been trying to keep open for years finally clicked shut. If my own family could not see my value, then I would stop wasting my energy trying to win their approval. I would pour all of my efforts into the one thing that had never let me down, my work. In the week between Christmas and New Year's, I worked more hours than I ever had before. My team was on holiday, so the office was quiet, allowing me to focus without any distractions. I refined our 5-year expansion strategy, initiated talks with potential European partners, and sketched out a new marketing plan. When Chloe returned to work in early January, she was shocked to find my office completely reconfigured. "Did you work through the entire holiday?" she asked with concern. "I had a breakthrough," I replied, barely looking up from my computer screen. "I have a feeling this is going to be our biggest year yet." In the 3 months that followed, Innovatech Dynamics secured 2 major contracts with Fortune 500 companies, finalized our European expansion plans, and started development on a new AI product that had the potential to revolutionize the industry. During this period, I rarely thought about my family. My parents did not call after Christmas as my father had promised, and I made no effort to reach out to them. Liam sent me occasional text messages with updates about Victoria, but I replied with short, polite responses that revealed nothing about my own life. As a result, the company flourished. As March drew to a close, I was completely immersed in the preparations for our most significant expansion to date. We were in the process of moving to a larger office space in downtown Seattle, and were hiring dozens of new employees across every department. Innovatech Dynamics was no longer just a startup. It was a major force in the tech industry, with me at the helm. "Evelyn, do you have a moment?" Our director of human resources, Eleanor Vance, appeared in my doorway one afternoon in mid-March. "Of course, Eleanor, what is on your mind?" Eleanor entered, closing the door behind her. She was holding a file and had a peculiar expression on her face, a mixture of amusement and concern. "We have received over 300 applications for the senior project manager position," she began, taking a seat across from me. "The hiring committee has narrowed it down to a list of about 20 candidates for the first round of interviews." "That is fantastic," I said, wondering why this conversation required an in-person meeting instead of an email. "Are we seeing a high caliber of candidates?" "For the most part, yes," she replied, "but there is one application in particular that I thought you should be aware of." She slid the file across my desk. Inside was the resume of my brother, Liam Reed. I quickly scanned it, noting the inflated job titles and vaguely worded accomplishments he had listed. His current role was listed as executive marketing strategist at a small local firm, where I knew for a fact he was, at best, a mid-level marketing associate. "Were you aware that he had applied?" Eleanor asked delicately. She was one of the few people at the company who knew anything about my family situation. "No," I said, still staring at the resume. "I had no idea. He was quite confident during the initial phone screening," Eleanor mentioned with a slight smile. "In fact, he was rather condescending to Sarah in HR, assuming she was just a secretary and demanding to speak with someone who actually makes decisions." I cringed. That sounded exactly like Liam. "The position requires a minimum of 5 years of project management experience and proficiency in at least 3 programming languages," Eleanor added. As you can see, his resume does not meet those qualifications, but he insisted that he be considered for a senior role, not an entry-level one. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. Liam had no idea that I was the CEO of Innovatech Dynamics. I had always been a private person and had never sought the spotlight, and my brother had never shown the slightest bit of interest in my career. But now, either through sheer coincidence or because our company's rapid growth had put us in the news, he had applied for a job at my company. "What would you like me to do?" Eleanor asked. "Obviously, this is a conflict of interest." I considered my options carefully. I could have his application rejected outright, which would be entirely justified given his lack of qualifications. I could recuse myself from the process completely and let the hiring team make their decision without knowing our relationship. Or I could use this as an opportunity to finally show my brother the truth about my life and my success. I want you to treat his application exactly as you would any other, I said finally. If he does not meet the basic qualifications, then he should not advance to an interview. Eleanor paused. On paper, he is not qualified, she admitted. However, he did mention some contacts with potential clients that the team thought might be valuable. They decided to advance him to the next round, despite his lack of technical skills. Connections. He was always getting by on who he knew, not what he could do. When is his interview scheduled? I asked. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I made a decision. I will not be directly involved in the hiring process. That would be unethical. However, I would like to observe the interview. Can you arrange for me to sit in anonymously? Please introduce me only as a senior member of the board. Eleanor nodded. We can arrange that. The panel will not mention your name or your title. After Eleanor left, I sat staring at Liam's resume, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. A part of me felt a pang of guilt for what might seem like a setup, but another part of me, the part that had been overlooked and dismissed for so many years, wanted Liam to finally see me for who I truly was. Not just his forgotten older sister, but a successful CEO who had built something significant through sheer grit and determination. That night, I barely slept. I mentally rehearsed how I would conduct myself during the interview. I would be professional, detached, and fair. I would not let our personal history cloud my judgment, but I would also not pretend to be less than I am. For once, Liam would see me clearly, without the distorted lens of our parents' favoritism. The next day, I dressed with particular care in a tailored navy suit, my hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail. I made my way to the conference room where the interviews were being held and took a seat at the far end of the long table with the other observers. I reviewed Liam's resume one last time and prepared a few technical questions that would be challenging but not unfair. At precisely 2 o'clock, Eleanor escorted Liam into the room, and my breath caught in my throat. I had not seen my brother in person in over a year, and he looked older, more polished in his expensive suit. He carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who has never been told they are not good enough. For a fleeting moment, I was that little girl again, watching from the sidelines as my parents lavished all their attention on their golden child. But then I remembered where I was, in the company I had built from the ground up, in a position of leadership that I had earned through years of relentless hard work. I straightened my shoulders, ready for whatever was to come. The Innovatech Dynamics headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Seattle. The conference room boasted floor-to-ceiling windows with a breathtaking view of Puget Sound. The walls were adorned with modern art, and I could tell from the look on Liam's face as he entered that the room was having its intended effect. Eleanor introduced the interview panel. Sarah from HR, the woman Liam had spoken to on the phone, Lucas, our technical director, and Jessica, the current senior project manager. She then gestured towards the observation area where I sat with 2 other executives. We also have some members of our leadership team observing today, Eleanor said smoothly. They will be sitting in on a number of interviews to ensure consistency in our hiring process. Liam barely glanced in our direction, his attention focused solely on the panel. He smiled confidently as he took his seat, adjusting his tie in a gesture I recognized from our childhood, a nervous habit he had whenever he was trying to impress someone. "Thank you for this opportunity," he said. "I have been following Innovatech's growth, and I am very excited about the prospect of bringing my expertise to your team." It was clear that Liam had no idea what Innovatech actually did, beyond the vague term tech solutions. If he had done even a minimal amount of research on the company, he would have discovered my connection to it immediately. Lucas began with a standard question. "Can you tell us about your experience managing complex technical projects?" Liam launched into a well-rehearsed answer about a marketing campaign he had supposedly led at his current company. "I coordinated between multiple departments, managed a significant budget, and delivered results that exceeded all expectations," he concluded, leaning back slightly as if expecting a round of applause. "And what project management methodologies did you employ?" Lucas pressed. Liam did not miss a beat. "I believe in a flexible approach, one that adapts to the specific needs of each project," he said evasively. "I do not like to be constrained by rigid frameworks." Jessica then jumped in. "Could you walk us through how you would set up a Kanban board for a software development project?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed Liam's face, but he quickly recovered. "Well, I would delegate that task to the technical members of the team," he replied. "My strength lies in the big picture strategy, not in the day-to-day technical minutiae." The interview continued in this vein, with Liam deftly avoiding any technical questions while emphasizing his strategic vision and interpersonal skills. When pressed about his technical knowledge, he became dismissive. "Let us be honest," he said with a condescending smile. "People like me are not hired for our coding abilities. We are hired because we know how to lead, how to motivate, and how to connect with the right people. I have relationships at major corporations that could be very valuable clients for Innovatech." Sarah, who had been quiet up to this point, spoke up. "Our senior project managers are expected to have both technical expertise and leadership skills. They need to have a deep understanding of our products in order to effectively manage their development." Liam waved his hand dismissively. "That is what technical leads are for. In my experience, the most successful projects are led by people who understand both business and people. No offense, but self-made individuals without the proper background often miss the forest for the trees because they are too focused on the technical details." Everyone in the room, myself included, knew that Innovatech was built from the ground up by self-made individuals. Eliner's brow furrowed slightly at his comment. "Tell us about a time you faced a significant challenge on a project and how you overcame it," Lucas asked, his tone still professional despite the growing tension in the room. Liam launched into a story about how he had saved a marketing campaign when a vendor failed to deliver on time. "I worked all weekend, making hundreds of phone calls to find a replacement vendor at the last minute," he claimed. "My boss was amazed that I managed to pull it off single-handedly. I pressed my lips together to keep from reacting. I knew that story. It had happened at his previous job, but Liam had not been the one who saved the campaign. His assistant had worked through the weekend, while Liam took all the credit. I knew this because that same assistant had later applied for a job at Innovatech and had shared the real story during her interview." As the technical questions continued, Liam grew increasingly agitated, glancing at his watch several times. "I think we are getting a bit too bogged down in the technical weeds here," he interrupted. "As I have said, my value is in my strategic vision and my connections. I am being considered for several senior roles at other companies, so I would appreciate it if we could focus on how my unique skill set can benefit Innovatech." Alina glanced at the panelists and gave a slight nod. "We are actually nearing the end of our scheduled time," she said. "Before we conclude, our CEO, who makes the final decision on all senior hires, would like to ask you a few questions." Liam sat up straighter, his attention suddenly piqued. Meeting the CEO was not on the interview agenda he had been given. "Of course," he said, adjusting his tie once more. "I look forward to it." Alina turned and looked directly at the observer section. "Evelyn, would you like to take over?" I stood up and walked to the front of the room, watching as recognition slowly dawned on Liam's face. His expression shifted from confident to confused, then to shocked, and finally to horrified. "Hello, Liam," I said quietly, extending my hand. "It has been a while." His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. He robotically raised his hand to shake mine. His palm was clammy against my skin. "You are the CEO?" He finally managed to say, his voice barely a whisper. "Evelyn Victoria Reed, founder and CEO of Innovatech Dynamics," I confirmed, taking the seat directly opposite him. I recused myself from the initial screening process for obvious reasons, but I do make the final decision on all senior hires. The color had drained from Liam's face, and his eyes darted around the room as if searching for an escape. But he was trapped in this moment of reckoning. "I have a few questions," I said, my tone all business as I opened his resume file. "I see here that you have listed your current title as Executive Marketing Strategist. However, when I reached out to Hargrove and Associates last week regarding a potential partnership, Peter Hargrove mentioned that you are a marketing associate. Could you clarify that discrepancy for me?" Liam's eyes widened at the mention of his boss's name. I handle executive-level projects," he stammered. "It is more of a functional title than an official one." "I see," I said, making a note. "And your resume states that you are proficient in Python and Java. Could you briefly describe how you would use either of those languages to build an API integration?" I oversee the teams that handle that kind of work," he said, tugging at his collar. "As I said before, my focus is on strategy, not on coding." "I see," I said again, closing the file. "One last question. You mentioned that you have connections that could bring significant business to Innovatech. Could you be more specific about who those contacts are and how they have translated into tangible business results in your current role?" Liam shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Well, Victoria's father, that is, my girlfriend's father, he is a partner at a major consulting firm, and my father knows several business owners in Pittsburgh who might be interested." His voice trailed off as he realized how flimsy it sounded. The connections he was so proud of were, at best, second-hand, leveraging relationships that were not even his own. "Thank you for your time today, Liam," I said, rising to my feet to signal the end of the interview. "Our HR team will be in touch regarding the next steps." I offered my hand again, maintaining complete professionalism despite the turmoil of emotions churning beneath the surface. Liam shook it, his expression still one of shock. "Thank you," he mumbled, clutching his portfolio with trembling hands. Alina stood up to escort him out. As they reached the door, Liam looked back at me, his eyes a mixture of confusion, embarrassment, and something else, perhaps a dawning awareness. Then he was gone, and a heavy silence filled the room. Lucas let out a low whistle. "Well, that was unexpected," he said. "I take it you two know each other." "He is my brother," I said simply, gathering my notes. "That is why I was not involved in the initial screening. Please evaluate his application based on our standard criteria, without any consideration for our relationship." The team nodded, but I could see the questions in their eyes. I excused myself and returned to my office, locking the door behind me. It was only then that I allowed myself to process what had just happened. I had not intended to humiliate Liam, but I had not shielded him from the consequences of his own arrogance and lack of preparation either. For once, he had been judged on his own merits, without the influence of our parents tipping the scales in his favor. I felt no satisfaction in his discomfort, only a strange sense of closure. For years, I had toiled in the shadow of my family's dismissal, building something that they had never even bothered to acknowledge. Now that Liam knew the truth, I had no idea if anything would change. I had just begun to compose myself when my office phone rang. It was Alina at the front desk. "Evelyn," she said, her voice strained. "Your brother is still in the lobby. He is demanding to speak with you, and he is on the phone with someone. I think it might be your father." I closed my eyes for a moment, knowing that this was far from over. With Liam, it never was. "Send him in," I said. "And Alina, thank you for handling this so professionally." "Of course," she replied. "That is what we do here. We handle things professionally." Despite the impending confrontation, the subtle emphasis on her last few words made me smile. Whatever happened next, I had built a team of people who valued competence and integrity, and that, in itself, was something to celebrate. I had barely hung up the phone when Liam burst into my office without knocking, his face flushed with a mixture of humiliation and rage. What the hell was that? He demanded, slamming the door behind him with more force than was necessary. I remained seated, my voice calm and collected. "That was a job interview, Liam, for a position that you applied for. You made me look like an idiot," he shouted, pacing in front of my desk. "You ambushed me." "I did nothing of the sort," I replied evenly. "You applied to my company without doing even the most basic research. If you had, you would have known that I was the CEO. Your lack of preparation is not my fault." He stopped pacing and stared at me incredulously. "How was I supposed to know? You never talk about your work." "I have been trying to talk about my work for years," I said, "but no one in our family has ever shown any interest. Besides, a simple Google search of Innovatech Dynamics CEO would have given you my name and picture." Liam ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that reminded me of our father when he was frustrated. "This is just like you, Evelyn. Always trying to one-up me, always trying to make me look bad." I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. "Liam, I recused myself from the initial screening process specifically to avoid any conflict of interest. The only reason you even got an interview was because of the hiring team's assessment. I only participated at the end, as I do with all senior-level interviews." "But you asked me all those impossible technical questions," he complained. "You knew I could not answer them. Those were standard questions for the position you applied for," I explained patiently. "Every candidate is expected to demonstrate their technical knowledge and experience. That is why the required skills and qualifications are listed in the job description." Liam collapsed into a chair across from my desk, his initial fury giving way to a sullen defensiveness. Dad is furious, he mumbled. He is on his way here. A cold knot formed in the pit of my stomach. Dad is coming here, to my office. I called him right after the interview, Liam admitted, avoiding my gaze. He and Mom are both coming. They were already in Seattle visiting Victoria's parents. My parents, despite numerous invitations over the years, had never once visited me in Seattle. But they would fly across the country to meet the family of their son's girlfriend. Liam, I said carefully, this is my place of business. Whatever family issues we have should be dealt with privately, not in a professional setting. He shrugged, a gesture of both helplessness and disregard for my boundaries. Too late. They are probably already in the building. As if on cue, my phone rang again. It was the front desk. Ms. Reed, your parents are here and would like to see you. Should I send them up? I closed my eyes for a moment to steady myself. Yes, please escort them to my office. And could you ask Alina and Chloe to join us in about 10 minutes, I thought. Having witnesses might keep things from escalating too far. While we waited, Liam's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and a smug look appeared on his face. Victoria's father might be interested in investing in your little company, he said. See, that is what connections can do for you. Before I could respond, the door opened, and my parents walked into my office. My father, Richard, entered first, his face set in the same severe expression I remembered from childhood scoldings. My mother, Helen, followed, her eyes darting around the spacious corner office with undisguised surprise. Evelyn, my father began without any preamble. What is the meaning of this? You deliberately embarrassed your brother in a job interview. Is this some kind of sick revenge? I remained standing, maintaining my professional composure. Hello, Dad. Mom, please have a seat. This does not need to be a confrontation. Do not tell me what this needs to be, my father roared, his voice rising. Liam told us you ambushed him, asked him impossible questions, and made him look incompetent. I did nothing of the sort, I said quietly. Liam applied for a senior position at my company without knowing I was the CEO. The questions he was asked were standard for all candidates applying for that role. My mother, who had taken a seat next to Liam, asked, "This is your company. You are the CEO here." She looked around the office again, taking in the awards on the wall, the view of the Seattle skyline, and all the other trappings of success. Yes, Mom. I founded Innovatech Dynamics 6 years ago. I am the CEO and the majority shareholder. I could not keep the note of pride out of my voice. My father waved it away impatiently. That is not the point. The point is that Liam needs this job, and you are in a position to help him. That is what family is for. The position Liam applied for requires technical skills and experience that he does not possess, I told him. It would be unfair to the other candidates, and to the company, to hire someone who is unqualified simply because of a family connection. So you are just going to turn your back on your brother? My father demanded, his voice escalating. After everything we have done for you? At those words, something inside me snapped. What have you done for me? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. What exactly would that be, Dad? My father was taken aback by my tone. We raised you, we educated you. No, I said, shocking everyone in the room, including myself. You raised me, but you did not educate me. I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through college, while you were paying for Liam's expensive private university. You have never supported my career. You have never shown any interest in my accomplishments. And most recently, you banned me from Christmas because you were afraid I would embarrass you in front of Liam's girlfriend. That is not what happened, my mother protested. It is exactly what happened, I said firmly. Dad called me a week before Christmas and told me not to come because Liam was bringing Victoria, and you wanted to show her family that you were respectable. Those were his exact words. Liam looked uncomfortably at our parents. I did not know about that, he muttered. Of course you did not, I shot back. You were too busy sending me pictures of the Christmas celebration I was excluded from. My father's face had turned a deep shade of red. This is ridiculous. We are getting off topic. The issue here is the job. No, Dad, I interrupted again. The issue here is much bigger than a job. The issue is that for my entire life, I have been treated as second best to Liam. I have worked my fingers to the bone to build this company, to create something of value, and not once have any of you shown any genuine interest or pride in what I have accomplished. A knock on the door broke the tense silence that had fallen over the room. Alina and Chloe entered, their expressions professionally neutral. You wanted to see us, Evelyn? Alina asked. Yes, thank you, I said, grateful for their presence. Mom, Dad, this is Alina Vance, our Director of Human Resources, and Chloe Rowan, my executive assistant. They are here to help clarify our hiring process. My father scowled at the newcomers. This is a family matter. Actually, I said firmly, this began as a professional matter. Liam applied for a job at my company. The fact that we are related does not change our hiring policies or procedures. Alina stepped forward. Mr. Reed, we have a very rigorous and equitable hiring process. All candidates are evaluated based on the same criteria. The job description for the senior project manager position clearly outlines the specific technical skills and experience required. You are the CEO, my father said, turning back to me. You can make an exception. I conceded, but I will not. The success of my company is built on hiring the right people for the right roles. Liam is not qualified for a senior position. So that is your final answer, my father demanded. You are choosing your company over your family. No, I said, my voice steady. I am upholding the professional integrity of the company I built. However, I added, looking at Liam, we do have some entry-level positions in the marketing department that might be a good fit. You would have to start at the bottom and work your way up, learning the necessary skills as you go, but there would be opportunities for growth. Liam looked horrified. Entry level. I have 5 years of marketing experience. Yes, I acknowledged, but not in technical project management at a company like ours. They are two very different career paths. This is insane, my father exploded. You are torturing your brother out of some misplaced sense of jealousy, always trying to prove that you are better than everyone else. Dad, I built a $250 million company from scratch, I said, a flash of anger rising, but I kept my voice under control. I employ over 200 people. I do not have to prove anything to anyone. What I am trying to do is build a great company based on merit and hard work, not on nepotism. My mother, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. Evelyn, after all these years, can you not just put your resentment aside and help your brother? Family should come first. That is a convenient principle to invoke now, I replied. Where was family first when you banned me from Christmas, or when you refused to help me with college tuition, or when you dismissed my career as just a phase for years? My mother had the grace to look uncomfortable. Things were not always perfect, but they are still not perfect, I interrupted gently. But I am not refusing to help Liam. I am offering him a legitimate opportunity to join the company at an appropriate level and learn the business from the ground up. That is more help than I ever received from any of you." My father shook his head in disgust. "This is a waste of time. Come on, Helen, Liam, we are leaving. Your sister has made her decision." Liam stood up and awkwardly straightened his suit jacket. "I would not want to work for you anyway," he muttered, his voice thick with wounded pride. "I have other options." As they turned to leave, I called out to them, "Liam, the offer stands. If you change your mind, have your people call Alina's people. Just kidding. Call her directly." My father ushered my mother and brother towards the door, but just as they were about to leave, my mother stopped and turned back to look at me, really look at me, for what felt like the first time in years. Her expression was complicated, a mix of confusion, resentment, and something else, perhaps a flicker of recognition. "Your office is very nice," she said quietly. "You have done well for yourself." It was not an apology and it was not a compliment, but it was something. A small acknowledgement of the life I had built for myself. After they left, Alina and Chloe remained, both looking concerned. "Are you all right?" Chloe asked. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, actually. For the first time in a very long time, I think I am. Because standing my ground, speaking my truth, and refusing to make myself smaller to make others feel more comfortable felt liberating. It felt like I was finally stepping into the person I was always meant to be. 2 weeks went by without a word from my family. I immersed myself in my work, finalizing our European expansion and overseeing the move to our new, larger office space. The confrontation with my parents and Liam had been painful, but it had also been clarifying. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without apologizing for my success or downplaying my accomplishments. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was relaxing on my couch with a book and a cup of tea when my phone buzzed. It was the security desk in my apartment building. "Ms. Reed, your parents are here and would like to see you. Should I send them up?" I sat up straight, surprised. My parents had never been to my apartment before. After a moment's hesitation, I told the security guard to let them in. When I opened the door, I was struck by how much older my parents looked than they had just 2 weeks ago. My father's shoulders were slightly stooped, and my mother's smile was hesitant and uncertain. "Evelyn," my mother said softly, "thank you for seeing us. We should have called first, but we were not sure if you would be willing to talk to us." "Come in," I said, stepping aside to let them pass. They walked into my living room, taking in the modern furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows with their view of the city, and the tasteful artwork on the walls. I saw my mother's eyes scan the room, looking for family photos, but there were none. "Can I get you some water, tea, coffee?" I offered, relying on politeness to bridge the awkward silence. "No, thank you," my father said, his voice much softer than it had been in my office. "We will not stay long." We sat down, my parents on the couch and me in an armchair across from them. For a moment, no one spoke. "Liam lost his job," my father said finally, getting straight to the point. "The day after we saw you, his boss found out he had been interviewing elsewhere and let him go." I nodded, not surprised. Peter Hargrove was known for his intolerance of disloyalty. "He has been looking for other jobs, but nothing has come through yet," my mother added. "And Victoria, she broke up with him last week, said she needed to focus on her career." I felt a pang of sympathy for my brother. Losing a job and a relationship in the same week was a tough blow for anyone. "I am sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. "Is he okay?" My parents exchanged a look. "He is staying with us for now," my mother said. "He is having a difficult time." I waited, sensing that there was more they wanted to say. My father cleared his throat. Evelyn, about what happened at your office, and about Christmas." He trailed off, clearly struggling for the right words. "What your father is trying to say," my mother interjected, "is that we have been doing a lot of thinking. And we are starting to realize some things." "Realize what?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "That we have been unfair to you," my mother said, her voice barely a whisper. "We did not see, for a very long time we did not want to see how hard you have worked or what you have accomplished. We were wrong to exclude you from Christmas." It was cruel," my father said gruffly. The admission stunned me. I could not remember a single time in my life when I had heard my father admit that he was wrong about anything. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Is it because you want me to give Liam a job?" My father's face flushed. Partly, he admitted with surprising honesty, but also because seeing your office, seeing your company, it made us realize that we do not really know you, Evelyn. We were so focused on Liam, on what we wanted for him, that we never paid attention to what you were building. And we should have. We should have been proud of you, my mother said softly. We should have supported you. I felt a complex mix of emotions, validation, lingering hurt, and a cautious flicker of hope. "It is not too late," I said, "for us to get to know each other. But things have to be different. I will not make myself smaller or downplay my accomplishments to make anyone else feel more comfortable. Not anymore." My father nodded slowly. "We are starting to understand that." "About Liam," my mother said tentatively. "The offer I made still stands," I replied. "He can apply for an entry-level position in our marketing department. Any promotions he gets will have to be earned, based on his performance, just like everyone else. But I will make sure he gets a fair shot." "That is more than fair," my father said. "I will talk to him." After another moment of silence, my mother asked, "How did you do it, Evelyn? Build all of this all on your own?" For the first time in my adult life, my mother was asking about my work with genuine interest. So I began to tell her. I told her about the early days of Innovatech, about the challenges and the breakthroughs, about the long nights and the small victories that had led me to where I was today. And as I spoke, I saw a shift in my parents' expressions. It was not just acknowledgement anymore. It was a newfound respect. They were finally starting to see me, not as their daughter who needed to be kept in her place, but as a successful woman who had created something of value through her own efforts. When they left an hour later, nothing was completely fixed. Years of neglect and favoritism could not be erased in a single conversation. But a door had been opened. A possibility for a new kind of relationship, one built on a foundation of truth and respect, had been created. The following week, Liam called Alina to inquire about the entry-level marketing position. He sounded subdued, humbled by the events of the past few weeks. Alina put him through the standard application process, and he was interviewed by the marketing team without any special treatment. To my surprise, when he was offered the job, he accepted it, despite the significant pay cut from his previous role. On his first day, he came to my office looking nervous but determined. "I want to do this right," he said. "I want to learn the business and earn my place here. That is all anyone is asking," I replied. And he said, "I am sorry. For Christmas, and for a lot of things." I nodded, accepting his apology but not letting him off the hook completely. "Show me with your actions, Liam, not with your words. That is how trust is rebuilt." As spring turned into summer, small changes began to happen. My mother started calling me regularly, asking about my work with genuine curiosity. My father was slower to come around, but he made his own awkward attempts, sending me articles about the tech industry or asking questions about Innovatech's expansion plans. Liam, to everyone's surprise, threw himself into his new job, coming in early, staying late, and absorbing everything he could from his colleagues. He still had his moments of entitlement, but he was learning, and he was growing. In July, I received another invitation, this time for my parents' anniversary dinner. There were no conditions, no caveats about who was or was not welcome. It was simply an invitation to celebrate as a family. As I RSVP'd yes, I thought about the past 6 months. The painful exclusion from Christmas had been a catalyst for change, forcing long-buried resentments to the surface. The confrontation in my office had been difficult, but necessary, clearing the air after years of polite fictions. We were not a perfect family, and we never would be. There was too much history, too many ingrained patterns to overcome completely. But we were finding a new way forward, one based on honesty, respect, and the understanding that family, like anything of value, requires effort and commitment from everyone involved. Standing up for myself had not destroyed my family, as I had feared for so many years. Instead, it had cleared the ground for something more authentic to grow in the place of old expectations and assumptions. Something that, with time and effort, might just become stronger and more meaningful than what had come before. And for now, that was enough.